What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central. In today's episode, we'll be talking about the new injury update for Derrick Jones Jr. You know, can't go a week without an injury update, apparently. Also, updates on Tyler Cook, DeMar DeRozan's interview, the trade deadline being 2 weeks away, and the Bulls face the Raptors tonight. We're going to get into it right after this. All right, beautiful people. So, unfortunately, I come with bad news yet again. I know by this point you guys are probably all aware. Derrick Jones Jr. has a fractured right index finger that's going to keep him out 6 to 8 weeks. We know we were already preparing for Derrick Jones Jr. to return because he's been out for a while. We were looking forward to it. I think I talked about it in the last video as well. Well, now Derrick Jones Jr. joins the likes of Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball on the 6 to 8 week period. All these injuries coming within, I think, like 5 to 6 days of each other. So they'll all be returning around the same time. But what that does do is that this roster, this team that we have right now is going to be our team for the majority of the rest of the season. Like I said, if that 8 week period, really, if they all come back towards the end of that 8 week period, that would mean that they only come back with about 10 or 11 games left in the season, which is enough to get them back going and getting started. But you know, at this point now, we can wait and stop any conversation about, hey, once this team gets back healthy, because this is going to be our team unless the Bulls make a move for the foreseeable future. So that means that Tyler Cook is probably going to be in the rotation unless the Bulls, like I said, unless they make a move from now until the end of the season. Troy Brown Jr. is going to be getting consistent minutes as well, with Derrick Jones Jr. being out. And it just, you know, what that does is a few different things, right? It allows for the players to kind of know now what their role is going to be. It's no more kind of looking over their shoulder and, you know, hey, in 5 games I may not be getting any minutes. This team is going to be this team, like I said, unless the Chicago Bulls make a deal, which we'll talk about later in the video. But I mean, at that point in time, like the Bulls, with everyone that they have right now being healthy, have more than enough to compete and to continue to stay afloat. They have to get back to their brand of defense. They have to continue playing with ball movement. It's good to have, of course, Zach and DeMar back, and what that allows for, you know, Kobe to come back and being the scorer off the bench, things like that. It's going to be very interesting to see what Billy Donovan's rotations and lineups are right now. Alfonzo McKinnie has given us next to nothing in his minutes so far outside of a couple of games. Troy Brown Jr., while he has had some games where he's looked really good defensively more than anything, and he's hit some open shots, you know, he's become a player that Bulls fans really don't want to rely on either. So it's going to make what and how the bench production comes for the team very interesting. Now, we do have Javonte Green back, which allows Tyler Cook to go to the bench, and Tyler Cook has looked really good for us in certain flashes, in certain ways. He also has a left eye contusion. He's listed as questionable right now, so we're not exactly sure how long, or if Tyler Cook is going to be out at all. He may not miss any games, but really that leaves the Bulls bench to mainly be featured with Kobe White, Alfonzo McKinnie, who shouldn't get any minutes, Malcolm Hill, who's shown some really good minutes for us at times, Tyler Cook, Troy Brown Jr., Tony Bradley. I mean, that's really it from the Bulls bench right now, unless the Bulls make a move. Now, you know, something that we'll talk about later on in this video is the potential in the conversation that the Bulls may be looking to do some things. But, you know, as of right now, we kind of know what this team is going to be. And the thing is that regardless of anything, yes, missing Derrick Jones Jr., missing Lonzo, missing Alex Caruso, they suck. And they were a big part of our rotation for a large part of the season. We still have DeMar. We still have Zach. We still have Vooch when he gets going. We know what Kobe can be off the bench as a scorer. And we saw the energy that having Jeff Green really brought back to the team. So, you know, the team has key players, and we need to get the faith back in. We can't keep talking about who's out. At the end of the day, the team and who we have on this team has to perform up to their abilities, and they have to get back to being focused on the defensive end. That's going to make so many things easier for the Bulls, because we know when you have DeMar, when you have Zach, when you have Vooch, when you have Ayo, who's shown now that you know, a couple of games aside, that he can be relied on to get you 10 to 12 at the very least, if he's in that starting lineup. This Bulls team has to compete. And so we'll be looking to see what Billy Donovan does with the rotation and the minutes and who steps up in the absence of those players. Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic today. I already talked about Tyler Cook and his left eye. He's listed as questionable for today. So we'll see what happens with that. You know, they probably see how the eye is responding or not, but I expect him to be in this game. DeMar DeRozan, let's talk about his interview. So his interview, when he said that he came into the season thinking he was the MVP. And, that's going to get a lot of headlines. Every great player, even every good player, should have that mindset and that mentality. And it's good that DeMar has it. It's also good that he talked about how the team that was built around them allowed him to be the player that he believed he was. Again, putting it back on the team. And we've always said, and at least I've always said, that the makeup of this team, the thing that makes this roster so great, is the sum of its parts coming together when they're all playing well and playing together, and you get the best out of people. Him being next to Zach, they bring the best out of each other and allow it really for no team to really double team on the two of them when they're both out there on the court. If you get contributions from Vooch, Io, Javonte Green just playing with his energy, it really makes that starting lineup hard to guard in a lot of ways. So, I'm really excited to see that. I'm really excited to get back to that tonight. It's good to hear. This interview was just, every time DeMar DeRozan gets in front of a mic, it's nothing but great sound clips. It's nothing but a great feel from it. And you get that calm veteran leadership that he displays on the court. It also comes out in his interviews. He's talked about Io again being special. And I love the mentor-mentee relationship between these two. I love the impact that he's going to have on Io, not just now, right? These years that Io plays with DeMar DeRozan is going to be something that really informs and impacts his whole NBA career. The fact that as a rookie, he was able to come in and have a player like DeMar to take him under his wing very early on. Don't underestimate what that does for the confidence of a young player and a rookie to have that to start their career off with. And then, whatever happens with DeMar at the end of this contract, whether he goes away, he retires, whatever it is, it's gonna have a lasting effect on Io. And Io, who hopefully is going to be a Bulls player for a long, long time, we're gonna get to see the effect of that for over the course of Io's career. I just love the relationship between those two. It's special, right? And not every team, and some people forget, not every team has that, because so often in this NBA, when teams rebuild, they really get rid of a lot of veterans, and it's really young players kind of figuring it out. And yes, they build bonds together because usually they build around multiple young players. But to have a player like DeMar DeRozan to mentor Zach as well, even though Zach's been in the league almost a decade at this point, to have him to mentor Zach, to really get Zach's mentality into that next level, but also the young players like Kobe, like Patrick Williams, who I'm sure is still soaking in some things, even though he's not playing, and Io DeSumo, as well as just the team overall and what he brings. You see the effect and how different this team is down the stretch when things get tight, when they don't have a player like DeMar DeRozan on the court. And it's been a great season and half a season so far to have DeMar, and he's really added to the culture change that has come to the Chicago Bulls. So that's always good to see, especially as somebody who's been a fan of the franchise my whole life. It's just great to see that type of relationship being built and the type of culture that we are now building here with the Chicago Bulls. Let's go ahead and move into our next to last topic. That is the trade deadline. It's 2 weeks away. So we have, and I said I wasn't going to really do any type of trade talk unless we get reports from more ups than just the Bulls fan speculation. With this one, there are people who are reporting that the Bulls are looking for a way to bring in Jerami Grant but keep Patrick Williams. Now, especially with the Bulls' injuries, I kind of understand that more, especially if you can trade one of the pieces that are injured as to match up salaries, and maybe that be more the key frame of the deal. But I still doubt that Jerami Grant comes to the team. I still hold my very harsh stance that Jerami Grant is not coming to this team, and for a couple of different reasons. There are some basketball reasons. Again, look at the advanced stats and the splits. The Pistons are actually a better defensive team with Jerami Grant not on the court. And we know the key thing, what we started this thing off, this conversation about the forward started with the Bulls needed a defensive forward who can rim protect and rebound the ball and hit open shots. Bulls players, Bulls fans, once it started being talked about that certain players were available, focus in on those players, even though they don't necessarily fit in with what the Bulls need. And Jerami Grant doesn't really fit that. Now, is Jerami Grant a good basketball player? Yes, right? Nobody's saying that. But Jerami Grant isn't going to have the effect that some Bulls fans think. And that is that Jerami Grant is the answer to the Bulls being able to compete for a title. No, he's just not that. He's not that. And again, when you talk about him needing to be extended, in at least a year, right? 2023 is when his contract's up, so he's going to need to be extended before then. And you look at the long-term financial outlook of this team, it doesn't jive there as well. Again, AK and Eversley, I trust in. So if they do make a deal, then they thought it was the best deal for the team. Again, that's one thing that I've been pushing more so than these fictional trades with certain players is let's trust this front office and what they do. So if it ends up being a Jerami Grant deal, I guess we'll see. I still don't believe that that's going to be the move. I still don't believe a lot of the smoke and mirrors around this Jerami Grant conversation. I think a lot of it is sensationalization to try to get headlines and try to get clicks. But all will be revealed in a little over 2 weeks. And I do have that trade deadline special that will be coming up on the day of the trade deadline, which I'll start streaming an hour before the end of the trade deadline, and I'll stream up to an hour after the trade deadline ends, just to have a conversation about any trades that happened in the NBA that day, how they affect the Bulls season, and their standing as things move forward. We'll be talking about all that. Make sure you're there for the trade deadline. I'll have it posted soon so people can go ahead and I'll have it scheduled soon so people can go ahead and click to be notified of it and everything like that. But that's where I think, let me know what you guys think about the potential of a Jerami Grant deal and the talk that the Bulls are looking to keep Patrick Williams if that deal were to happen. Let me know what you think down below. Let's get into the last topic for today. The Bulls face the Raptors tonight, and you got to think that this is one of the reasons why DeMar was given rest, because DeMar is going to want to play big against his former team. The Toronto Raptors are nothing to shake your head at. They sit right now 8th in the Eastern Conference. They're not a playing team. Well, technically they'll be in the playing, but they are sitting at the 8th spot in the standings right now. The team that's really come on in January, as the Bulls have kind of, because of injury, have faltered in January so far. The Raptors have had a really solid January so far that has really pushed them into being a playoff team in this season. This game is not going to be easy at all, especially when you look at who we have out and the intensity that's going to be needed. The Bulls have to play an intense full game of basketball, full 4 quarters, because if they have lapses like they did in last night, in the last game, it's not going to be easy to hold on to that lead like it was the Denver Nuggets at all against this Toronto Raptors team that's young and hungry. So going to be on the lookout for that. Does Kobe White finally get out of his slump as well? Does Vooch show up big against there? We know Raptors fans are going to come and say Vooch has played historically bad against the Raptors. Does Vooch step up, have a big game for today? When we started off our season against the Raptors, that's when Vooch was really not playing well before he came on. Is Vooch going to be able to have a big game and to contribute to this team and to really be a complementary scorer to what Zach and DeMar are going to do? We're going to have big contributions from Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. And what does Ayo continue to do? I think, and one thing that I didn't talk about, but the change of the rookie and sophomore game, and now that it's a tournament, be on the lookout for Ayo to have a really good tournament in that. I can't wait to see that during All-Star break and to see Ayo get to play amongst his peers and everything and where he stands, because we know Ayo has a chip on his shoulder. And I fully believe Ayo to be in that tournament. If he's not, we riot. But yeah, that's aside there. But the Bulls versus Raptors tonight, our team has to come in, they have to play, they have to be focused on both sides of the ball, and they have to execute. Let me know what you think are going to be some of the keys down below against the Bulls and the Raptors tonight as they face each other. Let me know all that. Make sure you're following the podcast at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. I will be opening the mailbag tomorrow. So if you want to get those texts and voicemails in, go ahead and do so at 773-270-2799. Like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.